1. About 7 years ago, when I was 17, my parents went out of town for a weekend and left me at home. This was a pretty common occurrence. My parents trusted me. I would usually spend these weekends away staying with friends or family, as my parents' house is a bit creepy to be in alone, even during the day. We live in a small rural town where everyone knows each other, and generally is pretty quiet and safe. Saturday I was supposed to stay with a friend, but her parents decided at the last minute not to let me stay. It wasn't a big deal that I had to leave. I was somewhat prepared to have to go home because her parents got weird about company sometimes. I left her house, which is about 15 minutes from my parents' house, around 9:30 or 9:45. While I was on my way home, I got a weird feeling that I can't really explain. I just knew that I didn't want to go stay at my parents' alone. I called my brother and asked if I could stay with him. At the time, he was living with a woman who had a small child. He told me it would be quieter and easier for him to just come stay with me, since his dog would bark if I tried to come in the house. He said he would be at our parents' in 20 minutes. Side note, that's relevant later. My brother is a relatively scary-looking guy. He's about 6'3", 200 pounds, pretty muscular and covered in tattoos. After hanging up, I decided to stop at a gas station and grab a snack before going home, so that my brother would be there when I got there. I pulled into the gas station. There were only a few cars in the lot, which is typical because it is a small town in the rural south, where everything pretty much stops after 8 p.m. I parked and walked up to the door. There was a man standing outside the door smoking. He opened the door for me without saying anything. This is normal southern hospitality, especially since I'm female. Smiled and thanked him. Inside there was another man standing by the door. I noticed him staring at me as soon as I came in. He gave me that gross up and down look, and said something to the effect of, "Hey sexy, what are you doing alone?" Creepy as fuck. I just ignored him and walked towards the back of the store. He yelled after me and called me a bitch. I still ignored him. I figured he was drunk or high or just an asshole. Most people around here talk a big game but rarely back it up. I wasn't scared, just annoyed. I got my snacks and paid at the counter. When I walked back up to the door, both men were gone. I was happy to not have to deal with any more catcalling. I began walking across the lot towards my car, which was probably about 100 feet away from the door. As I was walking, I looked down at my phone to see if enough time had passed for my brother to be at my parents'. When I looked up, the asshole who had hit on me was standing at the pump staring. I looked at him for a second and continued walking. "Hey, you know you're supposed to answer a man when he speaks to you," he said. I remember saying something snarky back to him and getting in my car. He looked pissed at my sarcasm. I locked my doors as soon as I was in my car, started it, and was thinking of nothing but getting home to eat my snacks and hang out with my brother. I put my car in gear and realized the man had disappeared. I looked around before pulling out of my parking lot, only to realize that both men were sitting in a car facing mine across the lot. They were both staring at me and talking, occasionally even pointing toward me. I just stared at them, defiant and pissed. I didn't want them to think they scared me at all. While we were sitting having our staring contest, the man who had opened the door for me smiled and gave me the finger across the throat gesture, as in, "You're dead." I rolled my eyes and pulled out of the gas station, annoyed. To my dismay, they pulled out behind me. I hadn't been scared up until this point, because as I said, most people here are a lot of talk with no follow-through. Instead of going home, I took a few back roads that connect in a sort of circle to see if they were really following me. Which of course they were. When they realized I was testing them, they drove up really close to me and started laying on the horn. I couldn't see their headlights, they were so close. I called my brother and told him what was going on. He told me to come home, and he would handle it. I started driving home. The two assholes were still on my ass blowing the horn. Even with my detours, I was only about 3 to 4 minutes from my parents' house. I slowed down to pull into the driveway and was immediately relieved. At the end of the driveway, my brother was standing shirtless with his shoulders back, hands crossed in front of his stomach, clearly holding a pistol. He was intimidating looking, pit bull by his side. I drove around him into the yard. The two guys actually started to pull in behind me until they saw my brother. Then they hightailed it out of there. I have no idea what they would have done if I had stopped somewhere alone, or kept driving. I always think fondly of that image of him standing there like a badass ready to protect me. I am thankful he was there. 2. Earlier in the year, I moved into a 4-bedroom student apartment with one of my sorority sisters, and a matched roommate. At the time, my sorority sister's boyfriend lived with her, and so did mine. We never had any issues in this apartment prior, and I actually worked for the complex as a marketing associate. My Srat sis decides to hold her older, real sister's 21st birthday party at our apartment, where a few of the sister's friends are invited. It's a Friday night, we have no issue with that, and they all come shuffling in. Music is on, drinks are flowing, people are dancing. It was a fun time. Around 11:30 p.m. we hear a knock on the door. We quickly turn the volume down and open it to find one of our neighbors. He was walking his dog and seemed a little drunk. He told us he lived next door and requested we turn the music down. We felt really bad about bothering him, so we invited him in for a piece of cake and a shot. He happily obliges and joins us for a bit. Come 1 a.m. we were getting pretty tired and started hinting that he should probably go home. He was sitting in the common room, watching us all go into our bedrooms. He didn't budge. So my friend's boyfriend decided to be a little more firm in dismissing him. Boyfriend: "Hey man, we are all going to bed. We good to call it a night?" Neighbor: "Yeah, I'll just be here. I don't care if you go to bed." Boyfriend: No. Get out of our apartment, please." At this point, neighbor stands up, fists clenched, getting aggressive and challenging towards my friend's boyfriend. Neighbor: "I live here. This is my place. I'm not going anywhere." Points to empty bedroom. "That's my room." My friend's boyfriend and the neighbor stare each other down for what seemed like minutes, until the boyfriend lunged at my neighbor. He grabbed him, dragged him out, and knocked over a ton of furniture in the process. The neighbor is screaming bloody murder, and all of our neighbors started coming into the hallway to see what the fuss is about. Neighbor grabs at my sorority sister's hair, dragging her down, and her boyfriend retaliates by rearranging his face. We slam the door, deadbolt it, and call the police. We're all in shock and thought that would be the end of it. Around 2 a.m. we hear banging and laughing on the door, except this time it sounded like multiple voices. He brought friends. The police hadn't shown up at this point, and we were terrified. We look through the peephole and it's confirmed 3 guys outside our door. All 3 of them were wearing motorcycle helmets and holding wide objects in their hands. My friend and her sister are bawling again on the phone with the police, as they continue to laugh, scream, and bang on our door. The way they laughed was so sinister. The hallway echoed their sounds, and it was relentless. The knocking escalated to kicking, punching, screaming, and laughing against our door and the walls around it. It was shaking our entire apartment, and they were enjoying it. Eventually, the banging turned into light knocking, pleading, and then nothing. 3 a.m., none of us can sleep. We feel weird. Like someone was still at our door. I send my boyfriend to check the peephole because I cannot shake the feeling that we're being watched. Lo and behold, our neighbor has returned maskless. He has a screwdriver in his hand and is trying to pick our lock. He must have heard my boyfriend's footsteps, because he started to scream and bang again. "I live here, this is my place, let me into my apartment!" Third call to police is now made. From 3 to 4 a.m. he sat against our door, gently crying and talking to himself, dog by his side. We stopped checking the door eventually, and the police finally arrive around 4:30 a.m. Shout out HPD. We file our reports, and before he left, he mentioned that they found an unconscious boy face down in the courtyard. He was rushed off to the hospital with cuts and bruises over his face. We knew it was him, and that the problem should be over. Next morning I go down to the office with my 2 roommates. I was scheduled off, but went through the security tapes to show my boss when he came in. When we reviewed the tapes, we saw the 3 boys circling outside of our door for an hour before one knocked on our door, and the hours after. All 3 were carrying screwdrivers as well as wearing helmets. I have no idea what they would have done had we opened the door. The neighbor did try to track us down and apologize, but my sorority sister who had her hair dragged wanted nothing to do with it. She and her sister pressed charges, we moved apartments, and nobody brings it up to this day. Creepy neighbor and his 2 other friends. Please, let's not ever meet. 3. Ryan was a man who looked like he had walked off of a shoot for GQ. He was 6'3", dark chestnut hair and bright green eyes. I had met him at a friend's birthday party and was transfixed in his stare. There are some people I meet where our sexual chemistry is just 100% synced. However, the moment we sat down to have a conversation, the instinctual response of flight kicked in my brain. His responses were calculated. He would match my movements, lips, and my reactions to certain things. Like a mirror, he would mimic me. It almost seemed too electric. At the party, things got a little crazy. We all decided to skinny dip in the pool and continue to drink well into the morning. Previously, I have been involved with some fetish communities and made a comment about spanking people, to which he replied he loved giving them. In my coy way, I said, "I don't think you have the guts to do it." Oh no. The mark he left on my ass stayed for the next week or so, but from the party, he had given me his phone number and asked me if he could go out with me. In the spirit of a new fling, I got excited. He called me and came to my apartment. Ryan stood in the doorway of my bathroom and watched me brush my hair. I leaned over and was applying makeup, a little self-conscious that he was staring at me. What? I like watching girls put on lipstick. Before we left, he asked me to drive. This is where the night started to not go as spectacular as I would have liked. Ryan told me that he had just started taking antidepressants, and it made him very sleepy behind the wheel. I asked him why, and he said, "Because I am a diagnosed sociopath." Now, before making any judgment, please note, this still didn't sway my opinion of him right off the bat. The derogatory person for a person with antisocial personality disorder. This is the more scientific description. APD, Antisocial Personality Disorder, is a DSM-5 Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, 5th edition, diagnosis assigned to individuals who habitually and pervasively disregard or violate the rights and considerations of others without remorse. At this point, I put my brain on cautious and proceeded into the night. He opened up about his mother being abusive and how hectic his home life was. With Irish parents, he was a first-generation American. But he had brought himself up by 34 to have his own business. He was wealthy and thriving. I felt more sorry for him than anything else, and I appreciated his honesty. Upon getting to the bar downtown that had recently opened up, we met 3 actors who had just finished a show. I asked them if the seats to the right of them were taken. They said no. You would think that would be the end of it. Ryan proceeded to shake all of their hands and invited them to join us for the night. As a first date, it did bother me a bit that we couldn't be alone, but it was fine. I enjoyed the conversation. The actors were shocked as he continued to buy them pitcher after pitcher of beer. But he continued to sit like a patient, and I was his therapist almost as he talked about himself. I would add little tidbits about myself sporadically throughout the conversation, but he owned the party. Even the actors seemed concerned as Ryan laughed in the company of the people he watched. Even admitting to me, he didn't know how to respond. 11:30 p.m. rolled around and the bar was packed, its grand opening. We decided to leave and go to another dive bar nearby. By then I had 3 drinks or so and looked at Ryan. "Are you sure you want to drink? You shouldn't be mixing alcohol and antidepressants." "Oh, it's fine. I just get sleepy." When we go to the second bar, Ryan told me that he had stolen one of the actors' phones from them. I became very angry as he laughed and demanded we walk back to return it to them. After I persisted, he complied. Ryan went through the contacts and phoned one of the actors' names to call. When he got through, he said we were at the bar down the street and asked them to come by. As I socialized with some of the patrons, two of which I knew, Ryan told them that he was jealous of my alcohol tolerance. In my state of being buzzed, he kissed me at the bar. Within the moment I let him, and he grabbed me by the back of the hair. He let go and then bit my cheek, not to draw blood, but enough to leave it red. "What the fuck?" I screamed, and he seemed shocked by my response. "I'm sorry, I was hungry." My limit to put up with harassment had almost finished. I pushed him away from me and walked outside to see two of the actors. Ryan came out and they asked him for the phone. Being as tall as he was, he held it up in the air to make one of them jump and finally gave it to him. We had driven to the bar with my car, so I wasn't entirely stranded, but I took a walk in a huff. Ryan ran after me and apologized, saying he thought the entire experience was funny, and he didn't mean to hurt my feelings. It was about 15 minutes to close when I got a text from a friend who had just come out of a show, and asked me if I wanted to go with her to a mutual friend's birthday party. I thought to myself, anything to get me the fuck out of here. Because I was not in the state to drive, she grabbed the both of us and we drove to a different part of town. 2 a.m. and we started to party even more. We got there and there was an excessive amount of cocaine to which we all partook in. Outside, I stood against the wood fence of my friend's patio with a shot of tequila, and Ryan followed out. He grabbed me by the waist and told me he wanted me to be good for him. Before I could respond, he slapped me across the face. Horrified, I screamed at him and pushed him away. The birthday boy of the party, who had also been a friend and former roommate of Ryan's, took him out of the parking lot to talk to him. I went back inside and didn't go near him for the rest of the night. I ended up staying awake until the morning, when I finally felt sober enough to drive to get myself home. But Ryan still had his car at my house. I woke my friend who had originally picked us up, and she drove us to my car while Ryan was out of it. Once I got on the road, I rushed home and told him he had to leave. "I'll have to sleep in my car, I'm still drunk." Ethically, of course, I couldn't say no. I told him he could take a nap, and then he would have to go home. In my studio apartment, he slept on my bed while I sat on my computer in a bit of a disassociative state. It was almost like being alone with a sleeping bear. He finally woke up and took off with not much word beyond that. This happened about 2 years ago, and I do not party like this anymore. I have a stable job and periodically will speak at local storytelling events in my city. Not long after I had met Ryan, I started dating my current, much more stable boyfriend, who has been supportive of me ever since. Ryan is an enigma. He got off of antidepressants and started to solely focus on talk therapy to get through his issues. I still talk to him sometimes just because I like to observe various aspects of human nature. However, I have never had such an experience as I did with him. Just the sheer fact that he has admitted he does care about others means that there's some hope. However, I hope the next girl he dates doesn't have the same encounter as myself. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 319. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Got woken up by a postman earlier, delivering a part from my bike I already had. See, what had happened I'd ordered the part to replace the seat post on my bike, or the little clip that holds the seat on, and I mistakenly ordered the wrong one, but I wasn't too bothered because it wasn't very expensive. Plus, it had already been dispatched, but okay, nothing I can do about that. I'll order the right one. So I ordered the right one, and that arrived a few days ago and got the bike repaired. So fair enough, bike's working, no problem. Today, I hear barely one knock at the door. Right, so at first I went downstairs, is there somebody there? Is there not? Because I couldn't quite see through. I don't have a peephole on my door, so I couldn't quite see. Then eventually one of those annoying little red cards comes through the door, so I quickly open the door and say, "Excuse me." One that goes, "Oh, right, there you go, just throw the card away, there you go, throw the card away." I'm like, okay. So he hands me this package. I thought, oh, that must be the part I ordered that was the wrong type, because it was definitely the wrong type. And I open it up, and it's identical to the first one that arrived. So that means the store I ordered this from, it was 2 different stores, is just sending random parts. They must be. Because, don't get me wrong, that means I've now got a spare that'll actually fit my bike. But at the same time, I wasn't expecting... I was expecting something that wouldn't actually work, that I'd probably just have to throw in a drawer or throw away. But there it was, two identical parts, which I thought was kind of weird. Ah well. With that, I'm going to head off for now, because I have had a massive headache for about 3 days, and it doesn't seem to be going away, so I'll need to try and get some rest. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.